Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fine.
Good morning, everybody. Oh, man, I forgot to turn on the lights here. All right, wow. Today, Federal Reserve meeting. Could be a really, really interesting Federal Reserve meeting. And normally, it would kind of be like check out for the rest of the month, but we are still going to get like non-farms next week or something like that. So yeah, we still got some interesting stuff here to go in December. Let's come over, check out the charts. Well, for the 10-year Treasury, they just continue to sell and sell and sell. And I think that some of this may be, again, the carry trade unwinding. But another thing that I am kind of seeing is that, at least in other areas of the world, the economic data is improving. So you're kind of getting this thing where other countries are actually thinking about maybe even potentially hiking, whereas the United States still kind of wants to cut. And that may be leading to some of the selling in the Treasury. I also think that there is some selling ahead of this meeting because everybody expects it to be a hawkish cut. So, well, we'll see what happens there. S&P 500, a little bit lower from yesterday. Not as bad as the day before, but, you know, it's really getting kind of sideways, which, I don't know, for December, usually it looks really good in December. So I do kind of feel like that's underperforming a little bit. Here we got oil. Oil continues to sell off here. Oh, man. Silver. Ooh, silver just took off above $60. So remember that like the all-time high in silver was 50. And that was like a really, really hard all-time high. Like some crazy things happened at 50. And we are through 60 and it's like no big deal. So some wild, wild, wild things are happening in silver. And I don't even think that we've had like the run. Because, you know, there are some big firms out there and everything that are always short silver. You know, there could be some real puking. You know what I mean? So, all right, copper. Copper recovering a little bit here, and the Japanese yen sideways. Yeah, I don't like this selling in the Japanese yen. Oh, yep, and then we got to do Bitcoin. Okay, Bitcoin had a little bit of a jump. Nothing too big. Now, it looks to me like my data is not coming through here correctly. Error. Yes, it looks like I'm having some connection issues. I think the Ninja Trader is connected and okay. Yeah, I am getting some changes over there. So it's just Jigsaw. Let's see here. You guys don't want to look at that. We'll turn that over. Should just show you the main screen. I don't know where you go into like. It used to be that you would just right click on that, but I don't know how the connection manager works in Jigsaw now. Yeah, how, in the new version of Jigsaw, how do you tell it to reconnect? I guess I could just close down Jigsaw and reopen it. Jeez. The only thing that can stop a Santa Claus rally is a dovish Fed cut causing a sell-off in the long end, says Michael. That scenario does not make sense to me, to be honest. See info window on connection manager. What is that? It's kind of weird to me that it seems like NinjaTrader is fine. Here. What's with that? I am not sure what to do. I could try restarting everything, I suppose. No, I don't use the bridge. I use rhythmic plug-in mode. Which honestly, it is starting to get to the point where it's kind of like, maybe I need to just give up on that. Okay, well, Rhythmic Trader Pro upgraded to a new version, so that might help. Yeah, you connect directly to the Rhythmic data. So the thing is I still want to use all of my indicators and stuff in NinjaTrader. Yeah, honestly, if I was forced to move off of that, I don't know what I would do. Because there are just too many things in the indicator package that are useful. Well, it would be like I would think, oh yeah, I can go and do this, and then after one day I'd be like, no, this isn't gonna work. Okay, that seems to have fixed it. Yeah, I use Rhythmic plugin mode. And I'm honestly kind of hoping that with my trading GUI, that's probably one of the primary data platforms. Well, we'll see what we do. Okay, so now that we got everything in here, it does look like volatility is pretty low and that they've been pretty tight for the session. I think we should keep an eye out still because you do often see kind of strange moves. Strange moves on FOMC day, so. Just reading Zero Hedge story here about FOMC preview. Bank of America's interpretation is that investors have anchored to the notion that a mid-cycle adjustment usually entails 3 cuts. I'm really not convinced that what we got going is a mid-cycle adjustment. I think that we are still in normalization mode after a huge bout of inflation, and I really think that a neutral rate should be closer to 2%. Well, actually, maybe it's 3%. You got to give them like 1% above inflation, right? And if you're going to get inflation back to 2, then you would want 3. But I don't know, 3%. But that's probably a big factor behind why they want it to be 4, because they think that the inflation is going to, that the CPI numbers that we're getting right now are going to continue to hold. And so if inflation is 3%, then they need to get 4%. But I can just see it like it is really, really rough for tech companies, and that is a much larger section of our economy now. But I do see this argument. Like, I think that there is going to be an increase in layoffs come the start of the year. There seems to be a lot of companies planning layoffs. Now, the thing is that layoffs are not what they used to be. It used to be that layoffs was something that really only happened when we were getting to a recession, essentially. But now we see companies just are constantly doing layoffs as a regular part of business. And in fact, you might see, with as much disruption as we're seeing in the industry, you might even see those kind of layoffs be more common, where like they will lay off large sections of their workforce and then hire on, relatively large amounts of people as they try to like re-gear, what they're doing, essentially, right? But there are probably a lot of companies that are planning layoffs. They are holding it off until after the holidays. So I think in January that we are going to see an increase in layoffs. But assuming that that doesn't push the economy into a recession, at that point, I kind of think that you've got all of the biggest uncertainties and economic volatility behind you. And at that point, companies kind of go, well, there's all this stuff that we've been putting off that we got to do. And some companies are even like, we're way behind and we're going to have to catch up. And so I think there is a good chance that if we get through January, February, and everything is fine, that you do see the economy start to accelerate a little bit and inflation becomes more of a concern again. I don't think that it's going to be too bad because, like, honestly, where the rates are right now, I have a hard time seeing us getting like runaway inflation, right? But if that could be, they just keep the rate where it is right now for a really, really long time. Fed is getting to where they're forced to choose between options that aren't any good, just less bad. Yeah, just less bad. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I am just not as concerned about the 3% year over year inflation from CPI as I think a lot of people are, because we know that a lot of that is things that are super lagged and are going to come down, and we know that some of that is cyclical. So, maybe the option is you just don't do anything. It's also, you have to wonder, because Donald Trump keeps saying, he was saying in that interview that we were reading yesterday, that all of these countries are going to invest all of this money in the United States, right? They're going to invest all this money. And, maybe that really does end up being like a real serious thing, that money really floods into the American market, because the amount of money that he's talking about really is pretty big investments. Like, if they just announced that they were doing economic stimulus of that amount, the markets would be just absolutely celebrating, right? So, well, I think there's some skepticism about like how did that money comes and where it goes to and all these sorts of things. But that could be a driver of a lot of economic growth. And if it does, then maybe you do get to this point where it's like, actually, there's too much money here. Not because the Federal Reserve printed too much money, but because all of this money that other countries were holding in their reserves comes back. So that could be interesting. not from Europe the way things are going. You know, that has been a really
Locked
interesting like headline theme that I've seen the past week. Basically that Europe has stagnated, that their share of global GDP has declined. And you know, a big part of it is because the administration put out some sort of a memo basically saying that. Basically saying Europe is a really important part of the United States strategy, and having Europe struggling and getting a smaller share of GDP really, really hurts things. And so they've got to fix their stuff and get back to growing again, which, you know, a lot of it really was just regulations. But hopefully they'll turn things around over there, right? But I also think that part of the reason why that is going on as well is because I don't think that Europe really liked the peace deal that Donald Trump was trying to make with Russia. I mean, it's a really tough situation, honestly. I feel at the moment that the way that the Trump administration and Republicans overall kind of approached the Russia situation has kind of hurt. And I'll tell you why. Because they basically gave Democrats and their opponents room to say that they're just curling up next to Putin. That they're just, you know, bowing down to Putin, right? The whole thing, the Democrat hoax, as Trump calls it, was that he's like a Russian agent of some sort, and trying to make a peace deal that gives Russia parts of Ukraine very much plays into that accusation. Yeah. I think that it's just kind of the reality of the situation that because Russia has made so much territorial gain in those areas, that you're just not going to be able to get a peace deal without giving up some of that area to Russia. And I don't know. I don't understand the politics of Ukraine and why Zelensky is so absolutely dead set on that. Keeping that territory. I mean, obviously we would prefer it not happen. I just don't see how you end the conflict otherwise, right? But it seems to me that Europe has kind of said this same thing, like, don't go with this deal. Shouldn't have to give up territory, yada, 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 yada. Well, yesterday, the big thing was that, you know, because I was saying, well, I don't know what you do now, because it does kind of seem to me like if Zelensky says no territorial concessions whatsoever, that this is just going to keep going. So yesterday, Trump started talking about that they need to hold an election, and Zelensky was like, yes, okay, maybe we should hold an election. Which, I don't know, maybe Zelensky is starting to see the reality of it, because apparently he's not super popular at home right now because of corruption scandals and things like that. Which, you know what? It's usually if you're at war, president enjoys a lot of support. So for the country to be kind of turning against him, it is kind of a big deal. So maybe that's why he's seen that and going like, okay, yeah, maybe we should do an election. I don't know. But things are moving. The Trump administration still wants to get a deal by Christmas. So I don't see that happening, right? Oh, man. So I wonder, by the way, if we come to Forex Factory, do they have when the next non-farms is going to be. Is it going to be next week? I thought it was next week, but yes. Oh, it's going to be Tuesday. Whoa, 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 whoa. We're going to get on Tuesday. They say tentative ADP weekly employment change. Okay. And then we've got, all of the non-farm things. Non-farm, unemployment rate, average hourly earnings. But then I also have, at that same time, core retail sales and retail sales. So we're going to get retail sales and non-farms at the same time. That is a little crazy, honestly. That's a little crazy. And then CPI on Thursday. Oh man, next week is gonna be crazy. And then we're off for vacation. So I think, yes, we're gonna take the 22nd to the 1st off. So we got all next week. We'll be here. And then we'll take a break for the 2nd. And hopefully I get some good work done then. I guess I might be able to record my video this weekend. I'll have to see what my wife's doing. I think she'll be home. I can record. Because my voice is sounding better. I don't think I'm completely over the sickness. But it's a lot better. And my voice at the very least sounds back. So we get that one video that I wrote out. And I can do that before. Well, no, I won't put it out before, but I will get it written and recorded and edited and everything before the holiday break. And that way I can focus on the trading GUI. And I can get a good solid 2 weeks worth of work. My day job, they go on holiday during that whole time too. So it should be fun. Andre asks, after how much time? What do you mean by that? With the non-farms, it's just going to be December non-farms. Like, they released the October report. They are basically skipping the November report, and the December report is just is late. So we get the December report on Tuesday. It'll be a crazy day. I can only imagine. Can you imagine if that report comes out on Tuesday and it's like super negative after we just had the market, do this whole thing about a hawkish cut and all that? That'd be interesting. It is kind of contradictory to me. Hazard's saying, I do kind of wonder if, or I do feel that some of the Federal Reserve behavior has been political. And I feel that way. Absolutely. Like, the whole tariffs are really damaging economically, and this could lead to a recession and all of this sort of stuff. And you're not going to cut? Like, what? It just doesn't make sense. Holding off on the cuts as long as they did just didn't make sense. They should have been cutting like back in May. They should have been cutting back in May. And I do feel that a lot of it is Fred President doesn't like President Trump, and the Democrats are kind of turned into, because when it was Biden, it was like, we're always dovish all the time. And now all of the sudden, when it's Trump, they're always hawkish all the time. It doesn't make sense. It's just not congruent. It does seem like some of their decisions are political. It does. So now we're going to get a decision here without the data. Although, you know, I do think that the Federal Reserve gets some of that information. Even if the report's not out, I think that they have some of that information. So, tough call. Tough call. I guess the thing is with it being on Tuesday, and then us also having a CPI report after that, that does give the market plenty of time to digest that data and, you know, set ourselves up for the next leg of things before the holiday. So that really means that next week is going to be big. Today is going to be big, though. I mean, today is going to be really big. I mean, it always depends on what he's going to say, but this has potential for one of the biggest FOMC day moves in a year, maybe. You know, so well, I haven't really done a whole lot of reading here. Oh, okay. They do have... I should point out that Oracle earnings are today. And even though Oracle has come back... Actually, let's take a look at Oracle. I'm more interested in Oracle now because I work at kind of a Utah tech company, and Oracle is kind of a big part of the Utah... tech ecosystem. So they came back from that crazy jump. And by about how much past that? By about $20 past that. So maybe down 10% even from that. I guess that's okay. Yeah. Dude, like this chart... The scaling of this chart is like gonna really throw you off because, you know, down in here we're in like the 150 to 200 range, and then all of a sudden boop up to 320. Like, that is such a crazy jump. It looks pretty good though. They really have done well since, like, especially right here, like if we were to, if this was the chart that we were looking at, right? It was 2022, and we're like, yeah, well, they got a boost, kind of just like everybody in the tech world. Okay, that's interesting that there was this huge jump here in December of 2021, but you know, it didn't surprise me that we're down when interest rates were going higher. And at that point, I would kind of be like, yeah, well, you know, these tech companies are going to continue to struggle. Now, what happened after this was that the big tech companies, like, everybody just invested in the big tech companies, even though they're kind of hurt by high interest rates, but like, they're the big guys and they kind of consolidate. And that's just what's driven the market for the last 2 years, right? But I wouldn't put Oracle into that category. So I still, even if I had known that the big tech companies were going to continue to do as well as they had, I definitely wouldn't have been like, oh, Oracle is going to be a great buy. But it just kept going and going and going. And then this thing right here, that is like, you know, enthusiasm over AI, because Oracle is kind of starting to play with AI. I also think maybe part of this might have also been TikTok, right? Okay. So jumping down, but they've got earnings today. So I think that that is something relatively significant to the market overall. Not that it's like really going to change the trajectory or anything, but it is an important part of like the current stock meta and the current sort of discussion. So if we came out with earnings and Oracle earnings were like really, really bad, I think that a lot of people would point that as like, yep, the bubble's ending. Whereas if it did well, that might give new life to the whole thing. So so very interesting. I have been doing well the past little bit too. So I can close that. F-18 fighter jets flew deep inside the Gulf of Venezuela and closest approach yet. So you know what? Actually, can we talk about the Venezuela thing for a second? Because I think I may have been wrong about the Venezuela thing. I had kind of forgotten that there's this whole thing. Where's a map? What's the name of this place? That's next to them. Guyana. That's right. So next to Venezuela and Guyana, these guys have recently discovered oil offshore. And Venezuela is all of a sudden coming out and saying, actually, we own this. Now, why would they be doing that? It actually, from what I've been reading, they're saying that Venezuela is friends with China and Russia. And China in particular really wants to take over Taiwan. And it helps China if the United States is tangled up in too many other places. So if you've got NATO doing stuff in Ukraine and the United States is stuck fighting a war in Venezuela because Venezuela decides to invade Guyana. And what other conflicts do we have going on? I think that that's like really the big ones, but I guess there is some stuff around India as well, right? But anyways, if you've got all of that going on, then maybe the United States doesn't have as many options if and when China decides to invade Taiwan. And so I think what's going on with Venezuela is that the administration is seeing this. And on top of that, they see the opportunity to kind of turn it into a narco-terrorism thing. And so that's why they are getting involved in Venezuela right now, is they can take care of this now so that a war in Guyana never becomes a thing. I think that's actually the driver behind this. And like oil is a factor as well, of course. But at first I thought, oh, this is just a really cynical play for oil in Venezuela. But I think I was wrong. I think I was wrong about that. Of course, we can't really know for sure because they don't tell us, and we're not going to be privy to that information. But that's just kind of some color that we've gotten. So now that I understand that, the chances that we do see more serious military action in Venezuela is maybe a little bit higher than I realized. Okay. So keep that in mind. Oh, that's funny. My Google Maps does call it the Gulf of America now. Totally forgot about that whole thing. It is still the Gulf of America. Do you think what if the next president is JD Vance, and JD Vance is president for 8 years, and then after that, maybe Donald Trump Jr. is old enough. He runs for president. I think he probably is old enough already. Okay, so Donald Trump Jr., he runs for president. He is president for 8 years. I'm just gaming it out. Like, okay, so you get like 4 terms there. 4 terms there. So 16 years. 16 years from now? Yeah. Let's say 16 years from now, Republicans have been completely in power. Most optimistic, I know, right? Okay, but let's just say that Republicans are in power for like the next 16 to 20 years. All right. And then a Democrat gets in. At that point, you will have had people that have gone through, like, been born and gone all the way through school, that their whole life it has been the Gulf of America. At that point, do you think that they will change it back to the Gulf of Mexico? I kind of wonder. The whole thing just is so silly to me, but I do kind of see this scenario where maybe he gets away with it, and from henceforth it is called the Gulf of America just because Donald Trump wanted it to be called the Gulf of America. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's the most optimistic. I do think there's a really, really high probability that the next president is JD Vance, actually. He has just performed as vice president really, really well. Republicans really, really like him. And he's probably the only person that I can really think of that can really take on the mantle of the MAGA movement and really have like the full support of people and things like that. Because you're gonna see lots of people like a really good example of this has been what's that? Man, what is her name? I wish I could remember her name. It's a representative that was always like really super right wing, and all of a sudden Trump has kind of turned against her, and so she's just not gonna run again next time. And everybody was yep, that's right, majoring Taylor Greene. I never liked her, but just because to me it's like, this is somebody that doesn't really know what they're doing and is just jumping on board and taking advantage of the movement. But mostly, somebody that doesn't really actually seem to know what's going on. Not just not run, she basically quit. Yeah, like it's actually like really quite wild how that all played out. But she was one of those people that was really trying hard to be like one of the leaders of the MAGA movement, and to just see how easily and quickly that like the people online, like, of course Donald Trump says something, and yeah, but it was really like to get the people that you see commenting online and everything to basically say, yeah, you're MAGA, like you're safe, is really hard, actually, because they're so anti-establishment and so suspicious of everybody that it is just, and like, quite frankly, like 3 years ago would have been the same thing with JD Vance. If he had been stepping up and trying to become leader of the MAGA, there would be a lot of people skeptical of him, right? But now, because of him being vice president and how well he's done as vice president and how well he's been like pushing back against the media and things like that, he is like the heir to the MAGA throne. And I really can't see anybody else really standing a chance. I would think that like maybe Ted Cruz would run again, but under the given circumstances now, maybe he gives up on some of his presidential ambitions. Actually, I wonder, is there a poly market for Republican nominee 2028? Prediction market. Okay, so there's a Kalshi and there's a poly market. Kalshi has been making a lot of inroads. They're getting like partnerships with all of these different companies and all this stuff. And it seems like they're left-wing people, but there are some people out there that are very, very upset about the development of prediction markets. Kind of interesting. But let's not get off track here. The current market at Kalshi has JD Vance at 50% and Marco Rubio probably is a good runner-up. Like it maybe the ticket will be Vance Rubio. Actually, I think that's actually probably really, really likely. What about this one? They might give us more. Oh my gosh. Okay, so they have a 54% chance it's JD Vance, 9% Marco Rubio, and then in third place we have Donald Trump running again for a third term. And who after that? Ron DeSantis. Do you think that Ron DeSantis running against Donald Trump in 2024 ruins DeSantis's chance at becoming ended his presidential ambitions? I kind of feel like maybe it did. Like, just running against Trump on its own doesn't necessarily end it for you, but he just seems so uncharismatic. Well, that's interesting that Tucker Carlson is on there. So if Tucker Carlson run, I don't know if he has any intentions of running. I think if Tucker Carlson was to make a play like that, he would probably get into a different office first. He would probably launch his political career running for the House or Senate somewhere first. But it is a possibility. Trump doesn't even want Vance in. You really think that? I haven't seen anything to suggest that Trump doesn't like Vance or doesn't want Vance in. I really I think that the poly market odds are pretty in line with what it's actually kind of funny, because when I think about it, like, yeah, actually there is a higher chance that Donald Trump runs for a third term and wins than that Ron DeSantis becomes the nominee. Yes, I do think that is probably true. Tucker Carlson, if he did run for president and then it was on the debate stage, then his chances would be much higher. So that's one where if he were to announce, or if there was rumors that he was thinking about running, I bet you that his odds would probably go up. So if I was trying to trade this market, which I don't know if it's really got enough volume to... I wish I could see the volume on this straight thing, but there'd be a little bit more analysis about this market that we would have to do. But if I was going to make a play, I think that, buying Tucker Carlson, not on the theory that he's going to win, But buying Tucker Carlson on the theory that he goes from like 3% to like 9% or something like that would probably be the way that I would play this market. And then you get Donald Trump Jr. behind that, which is another kind of a similar situation to Tucker Carlson, which is that I think that he would run for a different office first. But, yeah. So, I really do think that Vance, very, very high probability that he is the next, well, so I was saying that he could be the next president. So, like, the thing is, Republicans have a very strong tendency to vote for the vice president, essentially, right? They go with the establishment guy, kind of. And strange to think of it that way, but Vance is kind of like the default choice, right? And he has the best claim to the MAGA mantle right now, and he has like the experience and everything, right? So I think that JD Vance will be hard to beat for a Republican nomination. And then you get to the general election, right? Then you get to the general election. And right now, the only name that we're really hearing for Democrats is Gavin Newsom out of California, which I really don't like that guy. I really don't like what has happened to California under his tenure. And I know that a lot of Americans feel the same way. I think that Gavin Newsom would not be a very strong candidate. Basically, he would have a lot of the same problems that have kind of, well, frankly, kind of torpedoed Kamala Harris, right? Like he's just a little bit, he's so far left that the track back to the center doesn't work. No, you know, the Democrat Party has a credibility problem with the electorate right now overall, but then there are some politicians in particular that if they're going to run for president, they have an extra big credibility problem. And I think that Newsom is one of them. So if it was Vance Newsom, my money would be on Vance all the way. It would probably still be close, but I really do think that Vance would win. Granted, that would depend very, very strongly on how the economy goes over the next 3 years, right? If we get to 2028 and there's still lots of volatility because of tariffs and all of these sorts of things, and the Trump economy is still in the gutter, kind of the way that it has been this year, then the Republicans will really struggle. So that's probably the big wild card. Okay, let's see here. White House puts out a report on national security strategy. Report says the United States must work with our treaty allies and partners together, add another $35 trillion in economic power to our own. Well, so we were talking about some of that a little bit earlier, Mr. West, because I believe part of that report was the one that was saying like Europe needs to step up, right? And then something that's not in the report, but is definitely kind of a part of this like national security strategy is Venezuela. That the United States is concerned that a war could break out between Venezuela and Guyana. And so the United States kind of wants to short circuit that and deal with that quickly so that they don't get embroiled in something during the time when China might want to invade Taiwan. You know, that gets me thinking. I was doing a little bit of research yesterday about what they call the pile of work fallacy. This is what you can look up if you want to read what, you know, people have written on this. But basically, this whole, like, we're all going to be put out of work sort of a thing was something that even back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, people were talking about. But back then it was, well, if you encourage all of these women to get into the workforce, they're going to take all of the jobs, and then there's going to be men that don't get jobs, and the jobless rate is just going to go up. Well, having more people working and having more labor force available does change like the market prices of your labor. So I do think that there is something to be said that like it used to be that you could get by on one person's income and now you can't anymore. And a major factor behind that is that so many women work compared to in the past. But the unemployment rate did not go up. In fact, if anything, the unemployment rate has gone down. Why is that? Because there's not just one pile of work out there, right? The amount of work that is available can change. And in fact, the more people that are working, the tendency is that that tends to create more work for that available. Interesting, right? Which is a... So it's a good argument to look at what people have kind of said about that. I would like to read deeper, see, you know, what kind of empirical data and historical arguments they make in favor of this. But I think it really goes to like the AI thing. That like, if you come in and you have AI and AI do this certain amount of work, even if AI can do everything, okay, even if AI can do everything, you're going to get to this point where you run out of compute, you run out of power. And so, yeah, like the AI can do everything, but you can only let them do, you know, like in terms of skills, they can do everything, but they're not the capacity to do everything. So you set the AIs on certain things, and then on certain other things, you still use humans. And which you know, it might be that the humans are maybe not even as good at it as the AI, but maybe it doesn't matter because I'm going to use the AI for something else, and so we're going to use human labor for it. Well, but going back to the comparison I was making, like with the labor force, that could mean that our labor is worth less. Could mean that our labor is worth less. But it could also mean that goods and things overall cost less as well. So it probably evens out. Meanwhile, we're getting like insane amounts of money supposedly being invested between these countries and everything. We really could be set for a period of really strong economic growth if we can kind of get all our ducks in a row, you know? I think, though, this is just intuition, okay, what I'm about to tell you, because we're talking about a complex system that is really difficult to even model. So, I haven't really seen... I've done a lot of research on this actually and read a couple of studies on this, but they have problems, and I really don't feel that I've seen a study that really looks at all of the factors that we would really want to look at to see like how could artificial intelligence play out. But using historical examples and intuition, I think that the most likely thing that you're going to see is that AI doesn't completely replace people, that there will still be jobs that the AI can't do or that the humans are more efficient at. And that AI does help a lot of companies really scale up. So that's the other big question. So like with the internet, did internet help small companies or large companies? And there's kind of some argument about this. And like in the end, like there was this period where like you could innovate and kind of get in, but then like large companies kind of consolidated. But at the same time, the number of small businesses in the United States has just absolutely exploded and proliferated because of the internet. So they really benefited. I think that AI probably benefits small businesses more than it does large businesses. Like large businesses, do they actually, are they actually able to like get rid of all of their employees and just offload it all to AI? Because if like all of the companies do that, then the cost of compute's going to go up, the cost of electricity is going to go up, all of these things to the point where it's not economically viable anymore, and then you go back to people, right? So I'm skeptical about corporate, like large companies, corporate America ability to completely scale up on the artificial general intelligence thing. And so what it probably happens instead is AI becomes a way that every small business can easily do things that they couldn't do before, do them on their own, and scale their businesses up faster. Which means there will be more larger small businesses. The amount of work actually available is going to go up. The amount of, like, you come in and you say, here's like these existing jobs and we use AI with them. But then you have all of these companies that are like 10xing in size, right? That's an insane amount of jobs that's going to come about. And again, like the AI might not be able to take all of those jobs because of compute and power restraints, right? So I actually think that the end result of all of this will be shortage of labor. That they will have a hard time getting people to work. There will be a lot of people that like they inherited money from their boomer parents and everything is so cheap, and so they don't really see a reason to work. And especially if we're in kind of like the paradigm that we have now where we have decreased immigration. Yeah, I think we could be going into a period where you get like labor demand becomes tight again. As crazy as that seems right now, because it's definitely not the market that we're in right now, right? Why not give an AI to every human and teach them to use it efficiently in their job? Increase productivity, more work done in less time. Well, yeah. So who owns the AIs is kind of a big deal, because why would the company hire you and have you use the AI if they can just hire the AI directly? But at least in the way that it works right now, that doesn't really make sense. Like there has been some argument about like, is AI hurting the job market right now? And I would say yes, but not because it actually is replacing people. Yes, just because it has changed things in people's minds. And while businesses are kind of trying to wait out this first part of the Trump administration and everything, AI is just another thing on top of that to make them be like, let's just wait before we do things, right? But once you get past that, I really don't think that AI can eliminate jobs right now. Any efficiencies that you get out of them just creates more work. So it allows the company to make more money. It allows the company to expand and become more efficient in all of these things, but you still need the manpower. And if anything, you need more manpower. I think a lot of companies are leaner than they should be right now. I've seen that. And in that situation, it's usually going to be you are working with AIs, but usually the company has some sort of subscription. And I suspect that that seems to be the way that it's going right now. So because some places I've seen where people they own this subscription and they're just offloading their work to it. That's happening. But there are some where the company pays for it, right? I think that what you're likely to see is the companies pay for it. Because I'm not so sure that this is going to become cheap.
Block sell.
Like, man, the whole RAM thing, for instance, right? Like, computing stuff is just getting expensive because of all of this. So, and OpenAI, how is OpenAI going to make money? Like, the amount of debt and spend that they have to make before they become profitable is crazy, like lunatic crazy. So I think the end result of that is that AI doesn't go away, but that it's going to be expensive. It's going to continue to be expensive. It will take a long time before it would get to the point where, like, it's pennies. It's pennies, and there's like an infinite amount of work that you can do. I just don't see that happening. Because here's the thing. I don't think that you can make the AI more efficient than the biology. I don't think you can make the silicon more efficient than the biology. So there's going to be, at some point, where constraints come into the picture. And we're already kind of seeing that. There's not enough chips. There's not enough compute power. They're trying to scale up these data centers as quickly as possible, but that some of that might not go the way that they want. And then you run into there's not enough power generation in the United States. By the way, that 40 where they stopped was our regular session volatility predictions. So that's interesting. The control that companies need on their employees is huge for this to not be used poorly and people becoming more. Oh yeah. No, that's for sure a problem. The way that I see a lot of people using AI, or that I see a lot of people envisioning AI being used, is very problematic. For me, I've really enjoyed using them. I ask ChatGPT questions every day. And a lot of them are kind of like, well, let's just see how it does with this thing to get a feel of like what kind of questions can they answer well and not. But I've done like real coding with them and things like that. And there's some real limitations to what you can do with them for coding right now. And even if they become more accurate, I don't think that the power of prompting it well is going to go away. I just don't. And meanwhile, everybody else kind of seems to think that the AI is just going to do everything for them. Like, honestly, maybe I shouldn't say this, but this is honestly what I believe, or how I feel about it right now, is that there was a group of people in Western society that wanted to try hard, and they went into finance and computer science. And the computer science field got kind of a little bit crazy. Like the things and the tests and everything that you go through to get into a big tech company are kind of a little crazy. But people, they studied and they got through. And so the barrier to entry is really kind of an effort sort of a thing, right? And most people didn't want to go through that. Most people didn't want to do that. And so there's a very large group of people that just didn't do those things and just kind of floated. And those people are not being served very well by the economy, right? That I think that in some people's minds, it's like, the American dream is that your children do better than you. So like if you're a kid and you're happy with the way that your life is right now, then why do anything, right? Because things should be as good or better than they are now. Then that means that I don't really have to try. I should be able to have the same quality of life that I have, and then I'll be fine, right? And now we're kind of getting to that point, and it's not like that, right? And people that don't want to try hard see AI as an out. They think, well, maybe this is the way that I can become rich but not have to put a whole lot of effort forth. And in my mind, because not only am I a person that like I tried hard, but I enjoyed it. And if we went into this world where AI does everything and nobody has to work anymore and all that sort of stuff, I will still work. I will just do my own project, and that's just going to be like my hobby for fun, I guess, because all of our needs are taken care of by UBI or whatever it is that people think is going to happen. Because this world that some people are envisioning in their heads just sounds absolutely stupid to me. Like, we're just going to sit and watch Netflix all day? Screw that. I'm not going to do that. I'm always going to be engaged in something, trying to make my mind the best that it can possibly be, regardless of whether it's needed or not. Right? Now, because some people, they just want to let go and let the AI do everything, they are kind of being, they're falling into these fallacies of their own, where there's the people that aren't really actively using it and they just get all these fantastical ideas about what it can do that it really can't do. Or there are people that they use it and they're just really lazy with it and they end up submitting really poor quality work. And you know what? Like, if you submit poor quality work, it doesn't matter if you wrote it or the AI wrote it, it's going to reflect poorly on you. So you're absolutely right that a lot of it is being used and some people are becoming lazy, and I don't know what happens in the end, but I hope that the people that are lazy in the end pay for it. But I'm not going to be lazy regardless. I believe in excellence, and excellence means quality of work that is noteworthy, even when it's not necessary. Pay for your AI boyfriend. Okay, so yesterday when I logged into ChatGPT and did something, it had the personalities back. So I'm wondering if ChatGPT has maybe solved some of the issues that people were complaining about, made it not as good of a boyfriend for them. But I don't, that may well end up being one of the biggest impacts from it, is that like we were already having a drop in fertility and like issues between men and women, and like men were already kind of checking out, right? But now maybe you'll see women check, because I don't know, we don't have any stats, but I bet you there's more women using AI boyfriends than there are men using AI girlfriends. Right now, it probably is the case because it's all text, right? If they can level up Grok, if they can really get Grok to a really good product, then maybe the men will come along, right? So glad Opus is just ripping it out. Yeah, I haven't tried it yet. I would really like to try 4.5. Still hallucinates sometimes, but it's much better than when I tried before. Directly in the, yeah. So where I find the AIs the most useful is like doing commands from the command line. Like especially when I was doing cloud stuff, sometimes you just would want to collect a lot of information about the cloud. Like you collect all of these resources that exist already, and then you'd convert that over to using it in your in your Terraform, for instance, right? And collecting all of that took forever, and maybe you'd go in by hand. But now you can just ask the AI to do it, and it writes all of the G-Cloud or AWS command line commands that you need, and just collects all the information, and it's amazing. All right, it is time for me to get going. So I see you tomorrow. Stick around. Discord. Stick around in Discord, because we'll be talking about what's going on with the Fed meeting today. So, in the meantime, stay excellent.